Boys and girls, today we are going to be learning about an artist, and I'm going to first show you some of her paintings. This is a painting of poppies that she painted and different flowers where she would get really close up. She really would hardly show any part of the plant. She lived in New Mexico for part of her life, and so she would paint the hills that were around her house. Sometimes she even put the flowers and the hills together. She would paint her house. She would paint kind of ideas like dreams of having a ladder going all the way up to the moon. She painted clouds, and she also painted things that she found in the desert, like skulls. Here's another skull. And then other bones that she would find. Sometimes she would combine the bones together with the landscape, or even zoom in so close to a part like what it looks like right here, and be able to show you, let me find it, yeah, show you the view of the moon through a bone. And here's even a shell that she painted. This woman loved nature. I'm going to read you a story called My Name is Georgia. And it's Georgia O'Keeffe, who is our artist of the day, and it's her telling you about her life. So I'm going to start it now. Georgia O'Keeffe was born on a farm in Wisconsin in 1887. When I was 12 years old, I knew what I wanted, to be an artist. I've always known what I wanted. When I was small, I played alone for hours and hours and hours. I was satisfied to be all by myself. I did things other people don't do. When my sisters wore sashes, I didn't. When my sisters wore stockings, I wore none. And when my sisters wore braids, I let my black hair fly. I rode to town every Saturday to copy pictures from the stack in the art teacher's cupboard. At home, I looked out my window and drew pictures of what I saw. Maybe I could make something beautiful. At school in Chicago, I drew from statues in the museum. At school in New York, I painted one still life painting a day, every day. At school, I painted my teacher's ideas. But when school days were over, I went out into the wide world to discover my own ideas. I went to the Texas plains, the wild west of my childhood books. You have never seen sky. It is wonderful. I walked into the sunset. I felt the wind across the plains, and I painted the sunset and the sky and the wonderful loneliness and emptiness of the place. I painted day and night. I worked till my head all felt light in the top. I have things in my head that are not like that anyone has taught me, shapes and ideas. But I bundled up my paintings and went to New York City to be where other artists live. I walked down in the canyons of steel. I lived high up in the clouds and painted what I saw from my window. But sometimes what I saw from my window was the far, far away calling me. I painted a garden in the city. I wanted everyone to see flowers the way I saw them. I looked closely at the flowers. I painted a camellia. I painted it so big so that people would notice it. I painted a jack in the pulpit. I painted it big so people would see. I painted poppies and petunias and sunflowers and jimson weeds and irises and apple blossoms. My garden bloomed and bloomed until everyone saw the flowers the way I saw them. But still, I looked to the sky. The distance has always been calling me. I went to the New Mexico desert, so far away that no one ever comes there. I was satisfied to be there all by myself. It was too dry for the flowers to grow, but there were bones. I gathered the bones, big bones, little bones, short bones, long bones, a cow's skull, a horse's skull, a ram's skull, and brought the bones home to paint. One day I held one up against the sky and saw the blue through that hole. I painted what I saw. I saw the sky and the red hills. I walked in the hills at daybreak and twilight, at noon and in starlight. I painted the arms of the two red hills reaching out to the sky and holding it. I painted the Pedernal Mountain in the far away. I painted it over and over again, and then again and again, Real quick, just make sure you guys spot that, okay? Because I'll be showing you something later. God told me if I painted that mountain enough, he would give it to me. I drove my Model A across the desert and back, and up and down over the hills. I painted in my studio on wheels until the afternoon bees chased me home. Even in winter, I went far out into the far away and painted in the bitter cold. I painted when the wind was strong, nearly blew me away. I did things other people don't do. I climbed my ladder to the night sky to wait for the sun. I slept under the stars to see the morning sky when I woke. I stayed in the desert. My hair turned from black to gray, to white as the bones. I still walked the red hills. My pile of bones grew, my flowers bloomed in the desert, and the Pedernal was mine. And the sky. Oh, it was still wonderful. I painted the sky one more time. I painted my sky big so people would see the sky the way I did. I worked from dawn to dusk every day for weeks and months. Then, as I painted the last cloud, the sun slipped behind the Pedernal. I laid my brushes down. Kiss the sky for me. Georgia O'Keeffe lived to be 98 years old. In museums all across the land, people see her flowers, deserts, hills, cities, and skies the way she saw them. Now I want to show you these super cool old pictures. This is Georgia when she was young, when she first moved to New Mexico, and this is when she was much older. You can see on her skin how much time she spent outside in the sun. And here are some of the things that she collected when she was there. This is her sitting on top of her house in New Mexico. She bought it with her own money. It was called the Ghost Ranch, and she was there until the day she died. Do you remember that mountain I wanted you to notice? She called it the Pedernal. She could see that from her ranch. She called it Ghost Ranch, and she even had this ladder that she would put against her house so that she could climb up there, just like in the book. Here she is, just being a wild woman, going around. She's taking pictures. She would walk around like this all day long, painting. Here she is as she's getting older. Look at her cute little shoes. She's walking around. Sometimes she'd go on motorbikes, and sometimes she would be in her car. That was the car that they mentioned in the story. This was the view of Pedernal out of her window, and she sat by that window all the time painting. This is a kind of an old picture of her from when she was actually younger. You can see all of her brushes and the bones and the flowers that she's collected. And here's another one of her looking out the window. This is the ladder that leads to the top close up. That's kind of fun to see. And here she is as an older woman out on her front porch with all of her collected items. And this is actually a color photograph of another one of those paintings she liked to do where she would be looking close up through the bone. Like it said, she died when she was 98 years old, and she was painting till the very end. But something that struck her that they mention in the book, and they don't quite tell you the whole story, is that she used to fly back and forth from New Mexico to New York on an airplane. And the first time she looked out an airplane and saw the clouds above the sky, way up above the clouds like you see in an airplane, she thought it was amazing. She thought it was fascinating that you could see this sunset sky up here, or just the sky and its colors, and then be able to be above the clouds. Some of you have maybe ever flown on a plane. You probably know exactly what this is like. So she went, and that's when she painted that gigantic painting. She actually intended it to end up in San Francisco, but it ended up so large it couldn't fit through the doors. So it needed to stay in Chicago, Illinois, in a big museum that's there. This is what it looks like hanging. And this is what the museum looks like in real life. Now, this is in Chicago, and I just want to tell you a little personal story. When I was a little girl, my grandparents lived in Chicago, and every year I would go, when we visited them, I would go up these very steps and I would walk inside to look at all the pictures. And there was a little bit of a legend that they said that if you walk past the lions in front of the museum in Chicago, they'll roar to a girl if she's never kissed a boy. And I thought, this is so embarrassing. I am only in middle school and I have never kissed a boy. It's going to roar. So I used to try and go as fast as I could next to the lions. You'll have to figure out if you think that story is true. But when I would go inside the museum, I would always stop by this painting. And when I was young, I didn't quite get it. I thought maybe they were like marshmallows, or maybe it was like cells in a leaf or something like that. But it's so special for us to be able to read this story today to find out why she really painted it. And so in our next video that I'm going to be showing you, you are going to be learning how to paint this painting all by yourself.